Consensual rhymes, no need for pen and I strike the on time, matches and Winnie lads and has and still the jaded is flat. That's excellent, like when I stroke her and I'm making her dance more than a glass down. Tell her for sink, encourage me to guarantee her satisfactory. Like I'm focused on shutting down her company. I tell her the verbs, they make a nigga car swerve. No brakes till we crashed in the pussy superb. I always hang with killers cause I stay with murderous rhymes. We get hang time like Tony Hawk and Bird in the sky. Like switching lanes when we drive. I need the narrow like a mafia movie. You shoot this dope and smoke my coke when you be listening to me. I hate to be in upper skin, just call me melanin, baby. They hate to see a brother when that's Cain and Abel, that's crazy. I tell my brothers, please, sell a haters cracking. If you wanna buy a hoe from me, we can work out that. Keep it peppin' like the 70s. My ice pick is quick and grip like acid. Extra pretty chicks, trust them at your risk. Go take the suicidal right critics. Like the situation in your skin like paramedics. Be trying to stitch that snitch. I got the licking marijuana smoothie. Take a sip and strip if she ain't sitting on my dick and she ain't in position. Dick reminder of promethazine. Make her lean and then when my work done she go to sleep and dream. Replays of all flick legit. It's lyricism and true addition. It's too much fishing. Seas for a killer. Well to go hungry. It's time to get it. Like penitentiary songs, my nigga. It's bars and rhythms. Slide off like running on ice and winners to all contenders. Only thing fair in life is fucking transportation fees. And that ain't even fair because the system is a fucking leech. And come enjoy my science fair where we experiment the tree. Providing oxygen to the brain but no necessity. Guess I live in the sea. I'm in the waters like navies, baby. In that belly like navels. Freezing, taking annihilation. When the boys breaking, I'm always lyrically slanging. The politicians and prosecutors is really the cavemen. I'm tripping in a high away. Just keep a ball like I be fella polka dot like the rain. I rape a son, I gotta make a move like combination. I'm blowing balance, blowing for the ages in the age. Catch my brothers, come on. Creep with a cobra, come follow me. The hypnosis on snake. Only if metal gets solid the case. Handed like Gambit with Dylan Carr, so you know I'm the bomb. Or landmine, either way, I'm down to earth all the time. Ooh, Sane, skinny dipping to the bottom, the root inside. I play with flow like it's the Avatar shit. My breeze gon' blow.
Yeah, y'all. So I wanted to get on here and talk about consent. Hold on. I hate this thing to what do you call it? This background music. But yeah, I wanted to get on here and talk about consent. And I was talking about consent earlier, but Black Sun just chopping it up. And of course I do. I come through, I do my research, and I put in Google, was sexual coercion a crime? And of course, this came up. Hold on, let me get my other overlay. And then I also came up with here. Now I'm going to read this first before I get started into this consent information that I got. But it says sexual coercion is using pressure or influence to get someone to agree to sex. People can knowingly coerce others into sex, such as learning. Learning manipulative pickup artist strategies, or unknowingly, such as assuming the other person is okay when they're not. Okay. So here, you gotta forgive me because it's real small and I'm trying to read it, but I had Googled it before and I said, let me get this screenshot because I told y'all when I try to share my screen, my screen on StreamYard, it just don't be working out. So I screenshotted it, but it's sexual manipulation, coercion. Sexual coercion is using pressure or influence to get someone to agree. Wait, is that the same screenshot? Oh my God, go get the other one. All right, so let me just read the other one because it's the same screenshot. Y'all forgive me, y'all. I thought I had downloaded it, but I didn't. But it's on my phone. But y'all can go look this up because I'm not lying. It's dead ass. But the other question was that I looked into Google. Where my screenshots at? Where my screenshots? Okay, it's right in my face. The other question I said, is sexual coercion a crime? And it said sexual coercion is classified as a duress crime. Coercion involves obtaining consent from a person in such a way that their consent was given under pressure. This type of consent is not the product of a person's free will. Sexual coercion is a serious crime. That's the main part I really wanted to get up there. But that just further explained it. This screenshot. Y'all apologize, y'all. But I'm gonna read it again. Oh, thank you. And I meant to Ben put it on there, Black Sun, because I understand that you wanted a skull background, but the other skull background creeped me out, and I just had to change it. And I meant to put this on there, so this is, for you, because I know sometimes you be wanting change from the fire. I'm gonna read it again. Is sexual coercion a crime? Sexual coercion is classified as a duress crime. Coercion involves obtaining consent from a person in such a way that their consent was given under pressure. This type of consent is not the product of a person's free will. Sexual coercion is a serious crime. So I'm not lying when I said that. That's why a lot of these quotes, you wonder like how grown people that was like, grooming other grown people was able to get arrested. That's because doing something under influence or pressuring somebody to have sex, that is a crime. Yes. So I'm gonna get into this BDSM video. This content creator name is Evie Lee Pine. I'm gonna put her name in the comment section. So y'all know who this is. I love her. I've been following her for years. I really just started going down a rabbit hole back to watching her BDSM videos. She's a BDSM content creator. And she's just really helpful in understanding consent and BDSM in a whole nother way. So this is who I will be reviewing. So she breaks it down better than I can. You know what I'm saying? Because the reason why I wanted to talk about consent today for real is because BDSM in the misandrous community is looked down upon. But a lot of women don't understand that a lot of things based around, power and respect and honor and sacredness, you know what I'm saying, is only given and only shared in a relationship based off of that submissive consent, right? And consent is very important in BDSM. And so when you try to, um, put BDSM, try to give information about BDSM to other Black people, they kind of write it off because BDSM is so much involved with it, like, flogging and stuff like that. Like, it really gets dark because there's a pain aspect to it. But it can really be spiritual, right? But anyway, I'm a get into it because we're gonna go down this rabbit hole together. But let me put on Evie Lupine because I'm getting distracted. Hold on, y'all. Give me a second, and I'm gonna drop this link too.
Hello everyone, my name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. Today we are going to be looking at a pretty interesting model for thinking about consent. Just so you know, if you're not familiar with my work, I am primarily a BDSM educator, and so this video will contain references to kink and BDSM if it happens to make you uncomfortable. However, I think thinking about consent is by no means exclusive to kink or BDSM, and so hopefully, even if you're not into those things, some of what I am talking about here will resonate with you and will be helpful to know about. I actually want to start here because eventually what I want to do is have a more BDSM-centric video where I talk about some of the ethical frameworks that are available to us. You might have heard of SSC or Safe, Sane, and Consensual, RAF, PRIC, etc. All of them contain one very important letter, which is C, that stands for consent. And you probably know that consent generally refers to permission for something to happen, or an agreement that something happening is okay. However, actually obtaining consent and what good consent practices look like is a very nuanced conversation, and I think it's one we've been having more and more over the last couple of years. And so before I dive into those models which take consent as a given, I first want to think about consent in more specificity. And the term we're going to be using to do that today is known as the Fries model, which was actually developed by Planned Parenthood about 4 years ago, I want to say, or at least that is when I first came across it on Tumblr. And I think this is a really useful term because prior to having this, we really had a lot of sort of individual terms that were competing with each other for talking about what good consent looked like, things like enthusiastic consent, informed consent, so on and so forth. And what the Fries model does is it takes all of those various competing terms and synthesizes them under one more concise label. And as you've probably guessed, the Fries model is actually an acronym. It stands for freely given, revocable or reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. And what I want to do here is break down each one of these terms more precisely, have a discussion about what they mean, as well as some things you would want to keep in mind when using this model, in particular with kink and BDSM related situations. So let's go ahead and start talking about the first part of the acronym, which is freely given. Freely given means consent that is voluntary. It is something that is done without manipulation or pressure or threats or coercion. It's something that you give freely. And as far as the Planned Parenthood definition goes, it also says that it should be free of influence from drugs and alcohol. Now, if you are one of my viewers who's from overseas, if you're from Europe or the UK, you probably know where this is going because I have talked about drugs and alcohol and BDSM on my channel before. And especially if you're not from America, your relationship to drugs and alcohol and sex and BDSM is pretty different. Around here, it's generally unusual to have BDSM be done under the influence of, say, alcohol. Whereas in the UK or elsewhere in Europe, it's pretty common to have that done. And so I think it's important to be aware of cultural norms, while also seeking to have better models of consent. And what I think is important to consider here is when that influencing substance comes into play. I think it's very different to have a scenario where you're already super drunk at a bar and you meet a stranger and you decide to do something that night and you black out because you're so drunk, and that's just a recipe for a really, really bad situation. Versus having a play partner that you already trust, that you've done this thing with multiple times before, that you negotiate with in advance, and then add in the intoxicating substance as the play is happening, as opposed to negotiating while already under the influence with somebody you don't already know. We have to remember that the Fries model is a best practice model. That means it's showing you this is the best way to have consent be done. However, it is not the only.
I'm pausing it real fast because I didn't even realize that she had said that part because, you know, my ADHD asked me going in and out watching the video. I only watched half the video, but I didn't realize that she actually explained the difference between going out and, you know, why people, you know, also get charges for just going out and getting drunk and, you know, having a night of regret versus you negotiating while you're insane and stuff like that, and the difference. So that's deep because I always thought that it was, and even police will tell you like it's whoever, when you have a drunk night and somebody regrets it and they want to snitch to the police, like it's basically whoever gets to the police station first. A lot of people don't know that shit neither. So she's talking about some real shit here versus, you know, a loophole that a lot of, you know, people want to know about. Like, you got to be careful mixes and substances because you know, drugs and shit and alcohol.
Best way to have consent be done. However, it is not the only way to have consent be done. And especially when you do have that trust level built up, when it is something where you are risk informed and you are willing to take on the additional risk that comes with playing under the influence, you can choose to make that decision. And I just want to call it out here because it is something that will come up when we talk about things like safe, sane, and consent. consensual, rack, and prick in later videos. So let's go ahead and talk about the second part of the acronym, which is revocable or reversible. What this means is that anybody should be able to withdraw their consent at any time. Even when you are in the middle of sex or in the middle of a scene, you should be able to stop what is happening. You should be able to withdraw your consent. And as far as kink and BDSM goes, I think this is the most important one to think about when it comes to separating kink from abuse. With abuse, you can't revoke your consent. Nothing you do, nothing you say will get the abuse to stop. Whereas in kink, you should be able to revoke your consent at any time and have the behaviors or the activities stop immediately. And it's also worth noting here that the revocability goes both ways. It's not just for subs or bottoms to revoke their consent, but tops and doms as well. So let's go ahead and move on to the third part of the acronym, which is also really important for BDSM, which is informed. Informed consent is about knowing the full story of what's happening. If somebody says, yes, I'm on birth control, or yes, I will use a condom, and then they don't use a condom, or they're not on birth control, then that is not informed consent, because that's not the full story. They didn't do what they were expected to do based on what they said was going to happen. That's not what full consent looks like. And what is interesting with kink here is I think when we talk about informed consent, we are usually referring to not just merely knowing exactly what's going to happen during a scene, but rather being accurately aware of what the risks are of the things that we are doing. You know, what is the risk of a flogging? What is the risk of letting somebody's blood or drinking blood, right? Knowing these things ahead of time allow you to give informed consent. So maybe a parallel here with kink would be if somebody says, oh, don't worry about blood play, it's not really that bad, you don't have anything to worry about, without telling you what the risks are of infection or bloodborne pathogens being spread, that's not really informed consent because they didn't actually give you all the information that.
And like this ties into like I've heard black men say that they want to choke, like they actually choked the woman before out the blue, and it didn't work out because the little girl ended up banging him, and he was like, I couldn't say anything because I did just kind of like didn't ask her, I just like just choked her, and you don't want to do that. That's basically breath play. That's part of BDSM. A lot of people don't know a lot of things that they're into is aspects of BDSM in some way. Even though people have vanilla sex, like with just a little bit of kink, people don't know that that's kink. Hair pulling, that's pain play, impact play. You can't just randomly pull somebody's hair. That's why you have vanilla sex, because vanilla is like, okay, like if you have a party, right? And you want to get somebody ice cream, you go to the store, you want to get somebody ice cream. If you don't know what everybody's favorite ice cream is, you already know that a universal preference is vanilla. That's why we call vanilla relationships non-BDSM, because you don't want to do kink or BDSM things when you first meet somebody. That's not really consensual because, you don't really know that person, That's why she's talking about, having a line of trust with that person. And a lot of people fuck up, and they don't know. So, yeah, moving on.
Consent, because they didn't actually give you all the information that you needed in order to assess whether or not you could consent to the thing that was going on. However, there is definitely a debate about who is responsible for making sure that the consent is informed. Is it on the party that is going to be receiving that experience to be aware of what's going to happen to their own bodies? Is it on the person proposing the play activities? Is it on the person who's going to be doing the behaviors to someone else? And it is something that's worth discussing, especially if you are negotiating with somebody to do kink. It's worth saying, hey, when it comes to informed consent, what is your general behavior? Do you inform your play partners? Does it depend on if they are new or not? Am I expected to assess the risk for myself? So on and so forth. Important conversations to have, and definitely a level of nuance to consider. Number 4 on this list is enthusiastic. And this is the one that I probably have the strongest, most controversial opinion about. When most people talk about enthusiastic consent, they define it in language like it's saying hell yes to whatever you're doing. It's your body saying yes to everything that's going on. And I'm an asexual person, and so me being enthusiastic about sexual activities is generally not something that's going to happen very often. But that doesn't mean I can't consent to having sex or doing other intimate behaviors with my partners. At least as Planned Parenthood defines it, they define enthusiastic more as being something that you want to do versus something that you feel pressured or...
Yeah, and so certain people might not know it, but a lot of Black people don't really adhere to demisexual, asexual. A lot of people just think that has to do with sexual orientation versus, whereas versus just understanding like sexual attraction, like the level of sexual attraction, because you have certain people who are sex repulsed, who, but still engage in certain sexual acts for many different reasons. She breaks it down in many different videos why she does or why people that identify as asexual do, but you might have an asexual partner and they might be saying yes, but if their body's saying no, you don't want to engage with that person because, they might put coercion on you, who knows? That's why consent is important. MD, you wanted to make any comments? You had anything to say?
No, I'm good. I'm listening in. I actually had a question though. So,
No, go ahead.
so is the level of experience like for both partners an aspect of consent? Because like the way she put it, she basically put it like when she was talking about like the alcohol and the different drivers that may lead up to like a sexual event.
Yeah, that part, like, I never heard nobody describe it that way though, like, because I always wonder that, but I don't know if you ever talk to the police and they say, one drunk night you had with somebody, sometimes if one person regret it, it's basically a race to who goes to the police first, who regretted it more. That's not a lot, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's why I was
But the
asking like,
way, what
no,
you
go
were
ahead.
saying? No,
No,
you go ahead.
that's why I was asking like what. So what's the level? So is the level of experience in terms of between the two parties like, or is that an aspect of consent?
I
You know
think
what I'm
that's
saying?
what I mean. And BDSM, it would be as far as the drugs and substance abuse would be. But I mean, I feel like as long as they're I think she was basically like, I felt like when I listened to it, like trying to just help out men in general was like, you should negotiate what's going to happen as far as sexual is concerned while you're sober. If you listen to her closely, that's what I got.
Okay, I got you.
I'm trying to, not trying to get nobody arrested because, I'm just trying to say like shit's getting real out here, y'all. Stop playing, get into this BDSM shit. Stop thinking it's just a whole bunch of creeps and gay people that do that's into it, like, or a whole bunch of people that like getting fucked in the ass. Like, it's deeper than that, And I've had people try to steal my content, like that I did on BDSM, because I talked about a pay pig as a submissive. Now, a pay pig is somebody who will pay everything and that you can financially drain because that's what turns them on. And I'd be trying to tell people, like, first off, that's rare because people don't got it like that. And number two, all them people is owned. So you're not going to find them like that. So, and it's still prevalent in the, BDSM community that if you are submissives, you want to be compensated. You want to have your bills paid. You want to be taken care of. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of niggas talk about submissive this and submissive that, and it's just like, nigga, you broke. Like, not gonna have no sovereignty in your own fucking house. I mean, don't nobody saying get with a complete loser, but I'm talking about like as far as power exchange, and I feel like BDSM deals with power exchange also in relationships. It's not just in the bedroom as well, That's why I wanted to go down this rabbit hole with y'all, because Evie Lupin, she breaks it down way better than I do, but she also gets into like slavery, like people that's trying to give up power exchange 24/7, shit like that, and she gets into how to deal with how to be sane in that situation. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh no, well, not put that way. Nah, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. So yeah, let me finish this video.
Versus something that you feel pressured or obligated to do. And so I think it makes more sense to focus on it as behaviors that you want to engage in versus things that you feel pressured to do, rather than always being a hell yes. Because honestly, even if you're not asexual, I think requiring that everything always be something that you're actively hell yes about is seriously over optimistic of how much everybody always wants to have sex, because partners have different needs, different sex drive levels, and compromise, I think, is part of having an intimate relationship. Looking at it from a more kink-focused perspective, you might be somebody that has a partner with a foot fetish, and maybe you're not really into foot stuff yourself, but you're willing to give your partner a foot job every once in a while because it makes them happy, because it's important to your relationship, and it's something that you're not like actively know about, even if it's not really your favorite thing ever. And so I think we should leave room for compromise, for doing things that our partners enjoy that we don't necessarily hate, and just allowing there to be a little bit of a gray area between absolutely no and actively hell yes. Especially if you're doing power exchange, you probably already know this, but oftentimes the most powerful parts of a power exchange relationship is when you do things purely for your partner's sake versus things that are inherently fulfilling for you. It's not necessarily that you hate the activity that you're doing. It's kind of a meh, kind of a neutral, not my favorite thing ever. And the part of it that kind of fulfills your spirit is the fact that it's an act of devotion. It's an act of service for your partner in some way, because you enjoy suffering for them. And so there is a level of enjoyment, there is a level of I want this. It just looks very different from maybe the stereotypical vanilla, hell yes, please put a penis in my vagina type consent. So there is nuance there, and I could probably make a whole video where I just break down enthusiastic consent in more detail, but I'll go ahead and put a pin in that one for now, because it is time to talk about the last part of the model, which is specific. Basically what this means is consent to do one thing does not mean that there is suddenly consent for a bunch of other stuff to happen. Just because you have said yes to A doesn't mean that you're okay with B. And just because you've said yes to A now doesn't obligate you to say yes to A in the future. I think the best way to talk about this from a kink perspective is to think about opt-in versus opt-out negotiation styles. With opt-in negotiation, only the things that you actively say yes to are okay. Whereas with opt-out negotiation, everything is fine except for the things that you say no to. And I think specificity is a really important part of having a good negotiation practice, because if somebody just says, yeah, beat me up, please, let's go have fun, unless you've negotiated for like a consensual non-consent dynamic, or it's somebody that you know super well, where you know exactly all of their buttons to push, that's not really a lot of information to work with. And it also shouldn't be taken that because somebody says yes to a paddle, they say yes to this cane. Or because they say yes to DDLG, they're also saying yes to pet play, right? Being really narrow in what you consent to, being specific with it, I think is a great thing to practice and a great thing to keep in mind. And something else I really like with specificity is it's not just about saying yes to A or B, but also when is it okay to do this particular thing? You might say, yes, please call me a dirty slut during this scene or while we're having sex. That is specific to whatever moment you've negotiated for. Not call me a dirty slut during my big work meeting. Not call me a dirty slut in front of my parents. Not call me a dirty slut in casual conversation or as a serious insult, right? So I think thinking about that specificity is really important. Again, unless you've negotiated otherwise. And just to remind everyone, again, the Fry's model is a best practice model. It is not saying that this is how all consent should look under all circumstances.
I'm saying that's how all consent should look. That shit was fire. What you think, MD? That
I'm
should be
I
fire.
again, like if you in a relationship, you know what I mean. I don't think like saying no to something should be something that and don't get it twisted. I'm not saying like you don't supposed to say no. If you ain't with some shit, yeah, you supposed to say no. But I think it's a certain level of like nonverbal. You know what I'm saying? That you get to a certain point. That you know, especially when it comes to like kink shit. You know what I'm saying? Like I think like nonverbal. That's why I asked earlier about the experience. When I was talking about experience, I mean the level of comfortability, like between two people. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
what are we using to non-verbally?
I mean, I feel like it's a good model for just even if you're just doing vanilla because I mean she was saying nonverbal because she was saying like if somebody's body is saying no, like maybe she might be saying yes, don't stop, but her body is stiff and you like why is she just laying there looking crazy? You know. You understand what I'm saying? There's a lot of women who have that experience and they feel like they was violated. You know, they a lot of people have sex for many different reasons. Like
But shouldn't
that's
it be a
why,
filling out period for that though?
huh?
Shouldn't it be a filling out period for that, where eventually it should
Yeah,
be
and
able
that's
to
why she
be
talks about
nonverbal?
negotiation and trust and having a type of rapport with that person. You know, before you try out certain stuff.
So
You know
and I'm trying to relate it to the experience. So when does that negatively affect the experience though?
what? What do you mean?
Non-consent.
Non-consent,
Yeah.
and what degree non-consent?
Well, it depends. It depends on the level of interaction that we already into.
Right. And
If we if our energy already like intertwined, right, and we already in the process of like stimulating each other, where is the awkwardness at in non-consent?
I don't think it's gonna be awkward. I think if you if your energy is already intertwined, I think you already you actually have a good start for real for understanding that person and how it's gonna go down when you actually meet them. You understand what I'm
E-
saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but that don't stop something that you may not be consenting to. You know what I'm saying? No,
That's why.
unbeknownst to the other person.
That's why I think that's one lesson in it that she didn't really get into. But I think like negotiation is basically like you learning like the ins and outs, your likes and dislikes before before this is happening. Especially if you black, because black people we like to drink when we like to. That's when people pull out their substances and their vices. When they meet and they have sex.
Yeah, yeah, I get you. So
It should be
I
negotiated. That's that.
so
That's where the
at
part
what
come in where you talk about all this stuff. Talk about how
so
you want.
so I should be talking about I should be see and that's where I disagree with it like to a certain extent because I
Wow.
don't because at what level on what level should I be talking about my intentions on what I want to do to you or what I would like you to do to me?
So that way you won't. If okay, especially because people that's into vanilla, they don't they don't realize their BDSM side too. They don't realize how much BDSM exists on the spectrum. Some people, like I told you, like get fucked up and think it's okay to like choke a girl or something like that. It's important for you to like. Some people really don't know. That's why I'm sharing this video. You feel what I'm saying? That's
Yeah, I
not
got
cool.
you.
You
I
know,
got you. I
and
I, I guess what I did when I say I disagree, I don't disagree with the method. I guess what I disagree with is like a lot of shit it's impromptu. You know what I'm saying? Like
True,
a
I
lot a lot of
understand.
sexual actions are impromptu, whether it be right, wrong, or indifferent.
Right.
That like that part I get, but well, I guess like how like how awkward would it be? You know what I mean?
But
That's
I
what I'm
like the
saying.
way Evie Lupin breaks it down because it makes you excited to have a sexual experience, though, because you're so informed and you know people so infatuated with like leaving you in the dark or being mysterious, and it's just like that shit is not cool. Like I need to know everything that's going down, like and that's part of the consent. Or some people I want to know down to you, like, are you a talker in bed? Like all that shit. Like, because I want to know, like, how Kevin Hart was joking about how his girlfriend would say something to him and he didn't know what the fuck to say.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like some people not good at that. Like, let me know what's going on. I mean, ain't nobody gonna call the police on you if you don't, but I mean, it's gonna make the scene run smoother because they call that shit scenes. That's why you have shit like Subspace where they go. It sounds like a spiritual experience if you ask me because you read about it. But she gets into that. Let me see. Let me go through my playlist because I had saved. Excuse me, not shared. I had saved so many of her videos that I wanted to talk about. But the fries model, when she talked about that, I just loved it so much. But I wanted to talk about. Let me see. I want to talk about the aftercare too, because a lot of people don't know about aftercare. Like, and I feel like vanilla relationships need aftercare because a lot of people don't know about postcoital dysphoria. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like sadness or depression after sex. And when we experience like that closeness and connection, and sometimes we might have like emotional connection with that person, sometimes like when we're torn apart, like not torn apart, but like when we're apart from that person is and it suddenly stops, whether we orgasm or not, whether we consented to it or not, sometimes your hormones might drop immediately without aftercare. Somebody cuddling you, somebody kissing you, making sure you're okay, you know shit like that. You know what I mean, MD?
And you said it's called postcoital what now?
Postcoital dysphoria. Hold on, let me look this up.
Dysphoria.
Yeah. You ever heard of that?
No, I haven't, but I would argue a lot of men have that like a lot.
Post nut clarity.
Yeah. Is that different?
No, but 41% of men experience postcoital dysphoria. Yeah, let me look it up because I know I experienced this, like, without aftercare. That's why
Yeah,
I'm so.
yeah. How many men have sex with a woman like despite how she looked and like pretty much like not disgusted but I don't know the word that you would use but like I
I
said,
try
post wow, post nut clarity, you know what I mean?
for y'all, but for women, it's postcoital dysphoria.
So it's a different psychological
Yeah.
effect is what you're saying.
Okay, PCD refers to negative feelings after sex. This is different from female sexual dysfunctions, FSDs, which refers to feelings and functions before or during sexual activities. When you have PCD, you may feel melancholy or depressed after sex. You may also get aggressive or feel agitated, even if the sex was wanted by you and your partner. Postcoital dysphoria occurs more in women than men. See, most studies have focused on the condition in females. Symptoms of PCD can happen after completed consensual sex. It can happen even after physical pleasure and orgasm. Symptoms of PCD in women include tearfulness, sadness, anxiety, shit like that. And so, yeah, 41% of men reported to experience PCD at least once in their life. And only 3% of men experienced it on a regular basis. And a lot of, postcoital dysphoria comes from, a past of probably like sexual abuse. It could just be regular childhood anxiety, resentment for, what's going on. They might be thinking, is this person going to be in a relationship with me? Does this person love me? Postnatal depression, that could be it. The role of attachment, just, mental health can have a, a, a play a part in it as well. You never heard about this, for real? And
No,
women?
no, I only heard it. I only heard it through the eyes of like men, or like a reevaluation. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Or whereas, like you said, again, post nut clarity. That's what everybody calling.
I know.
So it's like after you have sex, like I said, despite what the woman look like, despite any
Y'all trifling.
like no for real, despite any type of like physical or mental traits that women may have, it's like after the sex, because that part is out of the way. Then it's like a reevaluation of if I want to like spend more time with this female or not. I ain't never heard it from the female perspective. Now I mean, I have heard like when females get emotional in terms of like after sex, but a lot of that's got to do with something that's post traumatic. You know what I mean? I guess it don't have to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something subconsciously. I don't know, but I've never heard like the actual term. No.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about aftercare. And this is like a model that I feel like people should, use after sex, and just so people won't have no feelings of regret and then get snitched on, I'm trying to help the black men out there. Hold on, let me turn this up.
It's hard when you're in BDSM for a long time to remember or realize, like, oh, this is how people on the outside think of what we do. And you get kind of these two main ideas. You get people who think of BDSM and think of, and it's always heterosexual. There's a lot of heteronormativity in all of this. So just like realize we're talking pretty much about male dom, female submissive relationships, because people that have thoughts like this like pretty much exclude any other way of doing BDSM. But they kind of think of like this woman screaming, no, please stop. And they're like, they're getting hit in the face, they're getting punched in the stomach, they're getting tossed around, they're getting thrown on the bed, they're getting really like roughed up, and then they're screaming no, and no one's up, they're crying, and crying, it's miserable, it's awful, it's horrible, it's like a horror movie. And then the man just like forces himself onto that person and then does whatever he wants to her right now. I will say, that is a very valid fantasy. A lot of people have fantasies like this. It's very common. However, a lot of people take that and think that is what all BDSM is. That's what every BDSM relationship is really about getting to. And they also assume that it's not really ever consensual because, oh my God, you're just reenacting violence. That came up in one of the other response tweets as well. It's like BDSM is just reenacting violence. So they have this picture of like a very like violent, almost like IPV-esque way that every BDSM relationship is. Now, if you negotiate for it and all the other stuff, please know that I think your relationship is valid. We're not really going to be getting into like the particulars of navigating a consensual non-consent dynamic right now because it's a whole other video, but just know that is one option. It is not the only option. The other thing that people tend to visualize is like the 50 Shades of Grey version of BDSM, which will forever stick to us and will never let go, seemingly, is like you get this like, okay, the BDSM itself might not be super intense, like it's bondage and flogging and, you know, a spreader bar, but the external relationship outside of the BDSM interactions is very toxic. And it's like a guy that has completely unaddressed mommy issues, a mental health disorder, probably, like just like is not altogether, and is not really doing things in a consensual way because they aren't being honest about their motivations, and it takes until a lot later on to reveal, I'm not really a dominant, I'm a sadist, and I do this because you look at my mom, who was a drug addict, and she was terrible and awful. And then the woman is just like completely unaware of what's going on, very meek, very like, I don't know what's happening, and like, he's hot and rich, I guess, so I'll do it, but like, it's awful and I hate it. And even though they're like saying yes to things, or they're kind of like coerced into a yes, on the inside, the woman doesn't really like what's happening, and she's doing it because of the relationship, for sex, because the guy has money, etc., etc. And so these are the most popular ideas about BDSM that people have, and I can see how, in sort of the most charitable way I can think about this, that if that is your way you think about what BDSM looks like, you hear about a safe word, you might have this reaction of like, well, why do they have to have a safe word? Why can't they just say no or stop or whatever else? Why isn't that good enough? Why isn't that enough? And I will say that people will also assume safe word is like pineapple, right? Or just like the word safe word, and that nothing else besides that will ever stop a scene. And this is where we have to be very clear. Most people do not stop their scenes using a safe word. A safe word is a tool you can use that is a pre-negotiated either action, phrase, word, etc. that you can use to indicate this is how and when the scene needs to stop. There are many ways of doing this. Yes, things like pineapple or safe word do work for this purpose. You can also use something called a traffic light system, where it's red, green, and yellow. Red means absolutely stop, yellow means check in, green means yes, like good to go. And then you also, in addition to that, can use what is called plain English communication, or no means no, something like that, where you agree no will function as our safe word. No can also be a safe word in addition to red, safe word, like all of that, all put together, all of these things can be safe word.
I feel like that's true. Like that's also like regular English communication. Like that's valid. Also, something that she said about BDSM, the reason why I played that part, that other part about BDSM, like when she was talking about stereotypes and shit, is because there's also like a gentle side to BDSM. You know what I'm saying? It's not always about the hardness. You know what I'm saying? Like, how can I put this? Like, there's actually a sensual side to BDSM. Like, even in knife play, you would think you're stabbing somebody or you're gonna draw blood. It's gonna be scary, and most of the time in knife play, you don't draw blood. You know, that's not. It's just the feeling of the back of the blade, like it's supposed to be the suspense, or like they'll cut your, your lace on your, your thighs and stuff like that. It's the sensation. You have to be very careful. But a lot of people might use a credit card and a freezer, but you got some people that might use a knife if they're experienced in doing that, But you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or like people that's into pet play, you might, brush your, your puppy's hair or whatever. Some people like to pet, like some people like to pretend they're a fox, or I already told you about Daddy Dom, little girl. I told Blackson about that, and he was just absolutely disgusted. But I was just like, you ever had somebody call you daddy in bed? And he was like, hell no, I hate it. And I was like, well, have you ever called somebody baby? And that's the aspect to DDLG, which is a subcategory of BDSM. But yeah. That's why I played that.
Yeah, I never heard somebody like describe a safe word like that. I always thought that like a safe word was for like
Because some people do role play. You find what I'm
Yeah, that's what
saying?
I'm saying. I ain't never heard it described like that.
Like
Where the
you got
safe word was like the completion. You know what I mean?
like the way she break everything down. I love the way people that's into BDSM break down consent. I really think that this should be taught in schools. But like that's why I said, people that's into BDSM, they just not a bunch of weirdos. It's just not a bunch of gay motherfuckers acting weird. Like it's deep. It gets very deep. But yeah, let me finish this video.
All put together, all of these things can be safe word. Doing this with your hands might be a safe word, or pinching, or tapping, or ringing a bell, or stomping your foot, or blinking 3 times in a row, or like doing Morse code, or like there's a lot of ways you can use a safe word as long as it's pre-negotiated. That might include no, stop, mercy, please don't. It could be a lot of different things. And the reason why we have so many different safe words or possible safe words to choose from is because every BDSM scene is different and has different parameters to make different safe words work better. I do want to finish this thought with like safe words and like ending scenes really quickly before I go into that. So I will say safe words are not the only way to end a BDSM scene. Where I live at most dungeons and like every convention I've ever been to, if you say safe word or red, that is like sirens going off, everything stops, record scratch. It means something really bad happened, essentially, or the scene went really wrong, either mentally, physically, etc. And people who are there volunteering, like DMs, may need to step in, depending on the rules of the place. They may actively step in to make sure the scene stops, and that means that a safe word is not the only way that people are ending scenes, right? It is even in personal relationships. I do know people where the goal is to get to a red or get to a safe word, and they play on a very intense level, but that is not most people's BDSM for the most part. And I advise this for people to avoid, issues in communication. Is safe words are meant to be something that you use when something goes really bad or wrong, and you need that to end immediately. It is a immediate, everything to stop, the curtains up, lights up, like this needs to be over right fucking now. And most people do not operate with their scenes going in that direction. People have a goal they want to reach. They might go to 10 strokes. They might go until they have an orgasm. They might go until they both decide they're done. They might just kind of feel it out until the end, or they might go until it's been like 2 hours. Like it can be time, it can be a whole bunch of other methods of both communication, verbally, non-verbally, external goals that you set. Those can all be things that factor into a scene ending. And most people do not end their scenes routinely using a safe word, and other things, including nonverbal communication, are part of that. And as I've talked about in other videos before, a safe word is not like the way that people use safe words and the way that people do BDSM. It's not like there's this like poor put upon slave that's like sad in a corner crying, and no matter what they say, no matter what they do, however they act, they can be on the floor sobbing, please, no more, I can't take it, and be like legitimately actually miserable and hating every moment of it. And no matter what they do or say or beg or whatever, their dominant, their master, whoever, will not stop unless they say a safe word. That's not it. There are some people who do play like that. There are, always outliers, always exceptions to the rule. But I would say for the most part, people do not really have scenes or relationships like that, because a safe word is a tool. It is a tool in your toolbox for making communication better. That does not mean you ignore every single nonverbal or verbal cue besides that. You have to be very attuned to your partner to do.
And she answers your question right here.
BDSM in a safe
about like the body language and shit. Like she's like, this is body check-ins and body language
manner. That means knowing their nonverbal tells. That means understanding their normal communication patterns and when and how those might change, or how they react to certain stimuli. This is why having a really in-depth negotiation before playing is so important, because some people are going to be very laughy and giggly and bubbly and dancing around, and maybe they talk back a little bit, and they're very, very active in their scenes, just like naturally. And other people are very quiet, they're very internal, they do a lot of internal processing. accessing during their BDSM. Both ways, again, totally valid. However, if one of those people who normally has a certain routine suddenly starts to change during the scene, and maybe the bubbly, lively one suddenly becomes very quiet and downcast, maybe they're kind of holding themselves and like rocking back and forth, but not in like an energetic way, but in like a self-soothing way, that's a sign to check in. And if the really quiet one who normally doesn't make a sound suddenly starts screaming, that's also going to be a sign to check in. So you also have to pay attention to those nonverbal and verbal tells and be able to kind of intuit a little bit, okay, do I need to check in? And this is where check-ins also play a role and are a factor here. Is a lot of people do, like, especially if they're really into heavy role play, do not really like checking in because it breaks the mood of the scene. It's like having, you know, a wall breaking moment during a play or something where it's like, oh, okay, these are actually actors, what's happening here? And that can be upsetting, especially if there wasn't a need for a check-in and then it happens anyways. You're like, oh my God, I kind of lost the mood. To me, though, I much prefer taking the risk of breaking a scene space over, like, violating a boundary or going too far and like breaking somebody because they didn't check in. But that's me just personally speaking.
Yeah, right.
And you can check in and like when you see those tells, like, hey, like, are you okay? What's going on? Like, do you still like this? How you feeling? How you doing? Like, you can keep it casual, you can be more serious, more direct. It depends on like what makes sense with the scene you're doing. But if somebody stops responding or they can only cry in response, like, even if they're having a good time, that might mean it's time to kind of wind the scene down a little bit, you know? Maybe, okay, we got to a certain point, they're not really communicating, they're going nonverbal. We haven't really talked about this beforehand, so to be safe, we're going to kind of cool down and start to end the scene. So safe words are really just a tool at the end of the day. And the reason they exist is because a lot of people use no, stop, please don't.
Hold on. Is this the right video where she talks about aftercare? Well, at least she answers your question, right? Because you just asked me that. Yeah, I never thought about it like that. Have you?
No, I ain't thought about BDSM at all, but
no, I'm talking about the way she breaks down like the body language part.
Yeah. Like I said, you know, like I said, the thing with I'm looking at it from a more like of an intimate point of view. You know what I mean?
I mean, a lot of people aren't as intimate as you. You know that, right?
I get it. I get it. You know,
okay, I get into the aftercare in this video. I'm sorry, Boop. She do get into the aftercare. I thought it was tripping. It's a long ass video. My fault. I didn't realize how long it was, but she got it so that way, like, you know, you can skip to different what's the name? That's what I really wanted to get into before she went and ventured off. But what you were saying, I'm sorry, MD.
No, I was just saying I get it, and you know, it's like the way she explained it, like as far as like the check-ins. Right. You know what I mean? Like the check-ins, like I didn't know like that was part of it. Mm-hmm. I always looked at BDSM as like, you know, it's go until you hit a safe word. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I didn't even know it was check-in. Mm-hmm. But like I said, with me, you know, the way I think about it, like from like I said, from an intimate point of view, like where I guess I could see the intimacy in that, but yeah, I mean, I guess it all depends on the intent. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this is where she gets into the aftercare because. Wait, let me make sure because this video long as fuck. Okay, this is it. Wait, is this it? Nope, that's not it. Okay, what is aftercare? Okay, here we go.
That you would look at aftercare and then look at a description of like an IPV cycle and then go, these are the same thing. Like, I'm sorry, what now? So again, I think maybe part of this is misunderstanding the role that aftercare plays in a BDSM relationship and in scene. So aftercare is the care that you do after a scene. It could be literally anything from getting a glass of water to cuddling and watching a movie to a massage to just like talking about the scene. aftercare can look like basically anything that you want. It is just there as a tool to help you kind of like re-regulate after an intense experience and, just kind of like come back to reality a little bit. And this is like, it is only very superficially similar to the like honeymoon period of an abuse cycle. And the way that I think these things kind of maybe overlap in people's minds is they vary in like the most basic way possible. Go, BDSM is when something bad happens to you, and then afterward, your partner has to make up for the bad thing they did to you by giving you something that you like or want as like a bribe to keep you in the relationship. And that's basically the same thing as like abuse, where something bad happens to you, and they basically make this comparison. But the function of aftercare is not making up after a bad experience or like coercing somebody to stay in a bad relationship by giving them the thing they really want. The BDSM is the thing they wanted. The steps are upside down here. Like the BDSM, the scene is the thing.
I also wanted to say that I feel like aftercare can also be good for people that's like, into like impromptu sex, like one night stands too, like, because like, yeah, it might save you from catching the charge, man. Like, you want to make sure you want to check up on that person, make sure whatever you did, she's still feeling okay. I don't know. It takes away that feelings of regret. You understand, MD?
Yeah.
Especially if there was substance abuse involved,
They wanted. The aftercare might also be a nice bonus. That warm, glowy, connected feeling might also be really good, but they also want the first thing that happened too. And so it's not really like, sorry, baby, I didn't mean to hurt you. Like, it's not like that at all. It's like you are just coming back down after an intense experience, and you need something sometimes to help you regulate and reconnect with the everyday world. And there are so many examples of things that are synonymous to this in everyday life, right? Like if you have ever gone to a yoga class and you've done like an hour-long kind of deep meditation where you've been meditating for a really long time, there's a moment at the end, and I want to say it's Shavasana. I don't remember what the word is, but you basically it's about lying back and like reconnecting to your body before you have to go back out into your everyday life because of that mental experience where you went to kind of a different place almost, and then you have to come back down to reality. Is meditation abuse? I would say no. Now, there can be a lot of abuse within,
the spiritual community,
yogi culture, like meditation circles, whatever that is, that can be a thing. But meditation itself, like the leader of the meditation is not abusing you because they put you in this like mentally different place and then brought you back to reality a little bit before having to go drive in your car for 30 minutes in traffic before you get home. Like that's not how it works. Like when you draw blood at the doctor's office, or when you donate blood or something, you get like a snack or a juice afterwards. That doesn't mean the doctor abused you. It means that like something physically happened and you need to kind of replenish your body after that happens. In the same way, BDSM can be very physically intense, though also enjoyable at the same time, because throwing a flogger for an hour will wear out your shoulder, or having to process getting spanked for an hour. That's going to take some effort and energy, and your body needs to get the energy back sometimes to feel kind of right in the world. Like it's very oftentimes true that people will, go out and have like a shake or a burger or something after they do a heavy scene because it helps, kind of replenish and regulate again. Or like, if you're going on a really scary roller coaster at a theme park and it's, it's so high and so terrible. And then like, it might be scary, but also this is like the most direct thing with BDSM, I think, of all the examples I'm going to give, is roller coasters are fun and scary. BDSM can be fun and scary. Roller coasters are not typically a tool of abuse, but after you go on them and you go through these emotional swings of terror and fear and delight and more fear, and you go back and forth, you might want to go to, the stand and get some cotton candy or churro or something and get a little sugar in you and then kind of go sit on a bench somewhere and go, whew, that was like fun and like I think I want to do it again. And that is very much how BDSM can feel. But really, the most obvious example that matches.
I feel like regular sex can feel like that too. You understand what I'm saying? I feel like that's why people need aftercare. Like I just told you about. Sometimes it don't have to feel like that, but sometimes especially if people, a lot of people experience sadness, at least one time during a sexual experience, except for the dudes who's having post-nut clarity because they're not even fully attracted to the person that they're having sex with. I'm not talking about that, but
you talking about a relationship.
I mean,
right?
I guess that's what I'm talking about, but
so who's not doing aftercare in a relationship?
I'm not talking about in a relationship, but I guess I will be talking about the first time somebody having sex, like just in general.
But you said
It
one
don't have
night
to be.
stand.
Why
You
you
said one
think?
night
Why you
stand
think it
earlier.
have to be in a relationship? Because I feel like this applies to vanilla too. Like
Well,
this
no, I
connection.
mean you said one night stand earlier.
I mean, yeah. I feel like a lot of this. I mean, I feel like that's the safest way to make sure all your partners feel emotionally safe. For just the benefit because like I'm basically I'm not finished like what I want to research. I just know you getting tired, and it's late. But I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole even further. But I wanted to get into like the relationship side of it, but I definitely wanted to get into the consensual side of it in general because I feel like just when men first meet a woman and stuff like that, they don't really go through none of this, even if their intentions is just to have sex. I feel like that's an aspect to it too that should be talked about because a lot of people don't know what rape is and stuff like that. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not talking about my situation personally, but I'm just talking to people in general.
Yeah, I feel.
Right.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole, which I'm interested to know.
But yeah, because I mean, I found out, like the origins, like a lot of the origins of BDSM, like it had something to do with Kama Sutra. Like when you hear the women talking about the subspace, like I feel like that shit is spiritual. So I guess you would be saying I'm talking about a relationship, I guess. You know. But I think I like when it comes to the conversation of like pleasure and pain, nobody ever thinks about like maybe people enjoy pain, to the point where they reach higher heights, like higher spiritual heights. Because subspace, when you look at the description, it sounds like a sense of euphoria where people damn near have a spiritual awakening. Because how is you able to take that much pain when you don't even know that you're taking it? It don't always have to be painful, but you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
What makes that like that's crazy? Like stuff like that is so understudied. Like, stuff
Right.
that gives us that type of bliss and euphoria.
Yeah, but like I said, with me, I guess the mystery of it is always like something that I take into consideration. But I can see where if your intentions is to be sub or dom, you know what I'm saying. I can see where the conversation
I'm a
like
switch.
be had.
I'm a switch. That's
Well,
a that's a submissive and a dominant. Like I've been in a dominant position before in bed, but or role playing, but for the most part I am submissive for the most part. Yeah.
that's
I'm
what's
more
up.
submissive than dominant.
Well, I mean, yeah, like I said, and I guess you'll get more into that like in the next one. You know what I'm saying?
What about you?
I mean, naturally, I will be dominant, but that's in terms of like traditional. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
Like I said, I'm following you. down the rabbit hole. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know.
You sleepy, ain't you?
Yeah, I am.
I
I
can hear it in your voice. I was gonna share another video because I got so many, but I got way more. Let me see. What's the next video was I'm gonna share? I think I'm gonna get into. Let me see. Did I do the spiritual side of the BDSM? I think I put it in one of my playlists. But I'm gonna share that with you where the lady break down the spiritual ancient side to BDSM, like the Kama Sutra part of it. And I found some stuff that I wanted to read too. But
That's what's up. That's what's up.
yeah. But was you ready to go to sleep?
I mean, like not right now.
Can you text me?
Yeah, I got you.
All right. Yeah, good night, yo, cause I'm tired. No, he getting tired, cause I'm not tired. Cause I actually drunk a Red Bull just to come up here. I thought Blackson was going to come up here because he was giving me pushback earlier about this consent thing. He was like, "No, it's not a crime." You want to see this shit was funny? That's why I said, "Hold up, nigga. Let me tell you about enthusiastic consent." Okay, black people don't know about this shit. Okay, y'all retarded.
Bye, GTO.
Okay. Okay.